Hey, hello and welcome to a quick tutorial about Gaea, the terrain creator tool from Quadspinner, which just had a new release with a lot of different test maps and sample maps where you can have a look in depth into the creation of certain terrains, textures, and vegetation, and so on. So my focus mainly on this tutorial is how to export your creations from Gaea to Houdini. Some might know also that there is the Gaea bridge available for Houdini, where you can easily link Gaea to Houdini with a few clicks, but in my case here I want to show you the classic way. So let's get started. We have here some nodes that define our landscape, like the canyon, the crumble. We have here debris, we have erosion, weathering, and we have different maps that define the color surface of our creation. We have here two maps that are linked together with this combine node here to mix the look of our color palette. And first of all, what we're gonna do is we go to the last terrain creation node and link up an export node. And in this export node, we can define here how our files are saved on disk. In our case, we have EXR, the industry standard, and we have here also the measure that will mesh our terrain to a geometry. So we also want that the topology of our terrain is created in quartz, and I want to also create normals, and I want to keep the level of detail to none so that we get no differentiation of the lower or higher detail amount. So once this is set, we also hit F3 on the keyboard, and then this little floppy disk here appears. If some don't know what a floppy disk is, it's from the time when the data space was very limited and when computers like you had before the machines you have nowadays, like in the early 2000s and 90s, they used floppy disks to store data, and often you had tons of floppy disks only for one application, program, game, whatever. So don't get confused. This is how a floppy disk looked way back in the past. And we hit this floppy disk also to our export. And we want also our saturation map here to be written down on disk. So hit F3 too, and here F3 also. And once this is done, you can go into the execution and build menu, which is here. So we go to the build settings. We choose 16K, which is fairly high for this kind of terrain. We want to build here in a certain folder, and we want to execute the build now. So here was a little error, so always check your notes. We need in the weathering also a height component to hook up into our erosion outflow. And the cool thing is that Gaea mostly knows about your connection issues and presents you a solution which you can click, and then you get to the goal much easier and faster. So the right tool has been written now, and we can see how our terrain is now been written to disk. All the color maps are written to disk, and the different maps we need for the displacement map and so on. So the export is done, and in Houdini we can create a GeoNode, put in a file node, and then hook up the main terrain file into the file node. So let's make this a bit larger with a transform node around 3 times larger, so that we have here a nice representation of our canyon. And I want to bring this over to the lob world into Solaris. So let's make here our null for the referencing, and this is our terrain. And we then make a lobnet where we then can put our terrain into the Solaris world. So here we have a sub import. We put our terrain inside, and we make a material library, go inside, and we make a USD material X builder for the material X. This is our terrain, and here we can choose the base color, make an image to it, and so on and on. And we also hook on our displacement map, where we set the scale a bit lower so that our displacement is not destroying our mesh. And to bring this together with our main shader here, with our terrain shader, we need a collect node, which then collects both shaders and makes them available for rendering. So we then hit autofill materials, we assign it to our mesh geometry, and you can see now that Houdini is calculating the color maps. And once that's done, we're gonna assign a material also with our mesh in the primitive and the material path to our terrain. So apply, and then we can a bit work on the lighting, like with a calmer atmosphere. And we also want a camera here to make this a bit more interesting. So like this. And then we're gonna add a comma, and we choose XPU and a bit higher resolution, and let's see how this is looking.